6 months ago, I impulsively ordered a set of interchangeable needles and yarn for my first project, and it's safe to say that we have not looked back. I thought, I can't let this occasion pass me by without marking it, so today I'm going to be looking back at all the beautiful and not so beautiful things that I have knit in my first 6 months as a knitter. I'll be looking at the yarn, the patterns, the knitting process, the finished objects, and I'll be ranking all of my finished objects in a tier system. We'll have F for the fails, and there's at least one of those, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll have C for kind of fine. That kind of works, doesn't it? B for better than average, A for amazing, and S for the super sparkly special staple garments. So let's just dive in and talk about my first ever sweater. The sweater that started my love affair with knitting. The first garment that I knitted was the Step by Step sweater by Florence Miller. And as a side note, if you're a relatively new knitter and you find the idea of knitting garments intimidating, this is a perfect pattern to start with. Before this, I barely knew what a knit and a purl stitch was. That was how much I knew about knitting. I'd knitted one, not even a proper size, like 10 by 10 centimetre swatch, like a swatch like this big. But I learned German short rows, increases, bind off, ribbing, everything that you could possibly need to know is perfect. There's an hour-long video guiding you through the pattern, and I loved the process of knitting it and really recommend it to anyone who's getting started knitting. I knit my sweater in drops and purl, which was the recommended yarn, and I used pink, red and white, which was inspired by a sweater by Celine. I used the same sort of stripe pattern for that and thought, £1,350, I can recreate that for less than 20. And yes, it's very different, but I am obsessed with this jumper. So I'm not sure if I've actually shown this on the channel properly. I think I may have wore it in some of my videos, but I've not properly explicitly like gone out of my way to show you, but this is my step-by-step sweater. The first thing I ever knitted. If we're being objective, then the German short rows are messy. The collar is a bit loose and flares out, but I did a good job doing the folded collar though, to be fair, because it's the first thing I ever knitted. The jogs on the back are horrendous. They were bad, and then I kind of tried to use my ends to weave in on the outside in a way to hide it, and I think I made it worse. I guess I was kind of trying to do duplicate stitching before I knew what duplicate stitching was, but they are not great on there. They get better on the sides and the sleeves, but the first few, not great. The yarn pills like a bitch. I have to debobble this like really regularly. I did it relatively recently. To be fair, it's not as bad as it had been, but you can see that the red pills, are they just called pills? The red little fluffy bits are really obvious on the white background. So this sweater is huge. I did my initial swatch and it was quite tight compared to the recommended gauge. So I sized up my needles by 0.5 millimeter, but I also had that new knitter fear of knitting things that wouldn't fit. So I sized up in the pattern as well compared to the recommended size. So yeah, you can fit 2 people in this jumper, but that makes it a very lovely, cozy sweater to wear around the house, which is where I primarily wear it. Though I wear this out with pride. I was walking the dog the other day and I was roasting wearing this because it's still, you know, end of summer. And someone said, oh, I like your jumper. And I said, thanks, I knit it. Overall, I really love the look of this sweater. I think the stripes are perfect. The spacing, the design, I think is gorgeous. And this is the sweater that started my love affair of knitting. It's why we're here today. It's perfectly imperfect. It's, I don't know, a special gateway drug that got me here. It's, I don't know, it's the reason I love knitting so much. And if I'm being objective, then no, I don't have to be objective. This is S tier. This is always going to be my favourite knitted object. I don't care that it's not perfect. Like, I love this jumper and I'm going S for the Step by Step sweater. So that was my only March cast off, but in April I knitted my first croissant. This is a new knitter's rite of passage, right? Doing a Sophie scarf, but I didn't love the scarf, so instead I did a Sophie hood, which I think looks much better. I used Yarn Smith's Superwash Merino DK and Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair. So when I cast this off, it was April and the weather was already getting above 20 degrees centigrade. So I haven't actually wore this or been able to use this as a garment. I know that when the time comes, I will be the chicest dog walker in York, okay? This is gonna look so cool, but I just haven't wore it. So I can't really comment on the usefulness and wearability of it. I can wear it now though. So when I was keeping track of the increases and decreases for this, I definitely lost track. There was somewhere I have a few more rows, somewhere I have a few less. So the tails aren't perfect, but it's good enough. I'm already roasting. My mattress stitching isn't ideal. It's not terrible, but not perfect. And it seems I still have ends that I've not woven. I'd never used mohair and yarn before. Obviously, this is the second thing I'd ever knit. So I was doing a lot of Googling about pairing, you know, yarn colours with mohair colours. And I read about if you use a slightly darker mohair, you can make the colour pop. So I did do that. So I went for a darker mohair than the yarn. And in hindsight, I kind of wish that I'd gone for the same colour, maybe more the darker colour like the mohair. But it's still very beautiful. I do really like this colour. The fabric is very lovely and soft next to my cold little cheeks, which I guess I wasn't sure if I would like it because I've never had a mohair garment before, but I really like it. I do love this, but as I said, I just haven't wore it yet, so I feel like I can't really justify a particularly high category for this one. So I think I'm going to go with a B because it was a really fun project. It taught me about I-cords and the difference between garter stitch and stockinette. I learned a little bit about how you mattress stitch, though I'm still not convinced I know how to do that. It's kind of put me off having to sew up garments. So yeah, we'll put Sophie in a B. April was also the month of my first cardigan. I knitted the Traveller's Cardigan by Ozetta and I used Drops Air in this bold red colour. Now, first things first, you've probably already noticed this yarn pills even worse than the Drops Nepal did. Yeah, it's lovely and soft and light, and that comes at the expense of pilling. I think that any problems I have with this garment come from my yarn choice. When I made the cardigan, I really wanted a light, warm but not too heavy throw on cardigan, and that is what I've got. Okay, so that's what I've achieved. I've got what I wanted, but it just wasn't necessarily appropriate for this pattern. The pattern's amazing. I loved it. It started my love affair with Ozetta and her patterns. I've since knitted another garment and I've got multiple on my autumn planning list, but the yarn just isn't necessarily right for it. I think I will knit this again in the future in a more appropriate yarn. I really love the sleeves on this, how they kind of balloon and cinch in at the cuff. The length is like perfect for a cozy cardigan, particularly one that I wear at home. They come down to like my thumb here, which I really like, being able to pull the sleeves over my hands. So I do really love the sleeves and the fit of this. The ribbing is messy and flattened, which again comes from the yarn choice. My buttonholes are, well, they're not great, are they? It was my first time doing it. They are fine. And that also, I think, partly comes with the fact that I used the same size needles for my button band and the body of the cardigan, but in the pattern you're meant to use DPNs for these last few stitches for the button band to make that a bit tighter, but I could not. I mean, I didn't have DPNs at that point, but I also just couldn't work it out. So that's part of why the button band's sloppy. But in terms of the pattern, that made it a really quick cardigan. Like, you didn't have to pick up all the stitches for the button band later. You just did it at the same time as the body. So that was great, especially for my first one. The yarn also had problems with being So it's a blown yarn. There's like a plastic casing that they blow alpaca wool fibres into to get this really like light fluffy yarn. But there was quite a lot of inconsistencies in this yarn where you'd have sections that were practically empty plastic netting and sections that were like rammed full really thick. So it kind of made it a bit frustrating to work with, having to like cut it and rejoin or accept that that bit might look a bit dodgy. I have since used this yarn for other projects and I didn't have this issue with other colours, not to the extent that I had with this one, so it could just be a batch colour problem. But that was frustrating whilst I was knitting it, because otherwise it was very enjoyable. Even though it was all flat, I think it was really good for me to like, you know, work on my purling and my knitting and my tension and not getting any rowing out. So I did really enjoy this. It kind of pains me to say it, but because of the yarn choice, no matter how much I wear this, this looks sloppy and I don't really wear it out of the house much. It's very much my house cardigan, which is fine. That has a purpose. I spend a lot of time at home, but I think I'm going to have to put my traveller's cardigan in the category C. The next pattern I want to talk about is the Tolsta tank by Rebecca Clow of the Korea Bear. I knit this in Drops Bell and I don't want to talk about it, to be honest. I just don't want to talk about it. I deleted this one from my Ravelry, let's just put it that way. I gauge swatched. My gauge swatch was perfect. My gauge on the garment was far from perfect. It was so loose. This is knitted bottom up, so it felt like it took forever to get started because you were knitting around the entire body, and that also meant that I didn't really realise how big this garment was coming out compared to how it should. I hated doing it bottom up. I have avoided doing anything bottom up since, and you know, that's an important lesson to learn. I haven't finished weaving in my ends because there was no point. And the ones that I did weave in are so obvious in this yarn. I didn't really enjoy the process of knitting this because the yarn is very unforgiving in terms of tension. So obviously as a new knitter, my tension was still a bit uneven. It wasn't perfect and it looks okay, but it was quite difficult and hard on my hands. I'm just going to say that this disaster all round, okay? F. And let's put it away and never talk about it again. So May brings another pattern by Ozetta, and this time I knitted the clay sweater. I knitted it in Drops Lima in a gorgeous blue colour. Not too blue, not too bright, not too dark. It's just the perfect colour. I think it suits me really well. I chose this pattern because I wanted to try a drop shoulder sweater. The cardigan that I done was drop shoulder, so I had some idea of how it would work, but I wanted to try something textured, like having to keep track of a pattern but without doing cabling or colour work. And I thought that this pattern texture with purl bumps and knit rows was the perfect kind of step in that direction. I vaguely remember messing up some of the edge stitches on the back, but you really can't tell how I've done. And there is also a row somewhere where I definitely wasn't counting properly and have an extra row of stockinette between the purl bumps, so it's slightly uneven. But again, you can't really tell when I'm wearing it. I wouldn't be able to find it for you now, I don't think. This kind of helped solidify my love of German short rows because the back trapezoid, the back shape, slanted shape, is made using German short rows. I enjoyed it so much. This jumper is the perfect size, the right amount of oversized, the sleeves are the right length, the body's the right length. I love wearing it. I did bind off a bit too tightly. I did the tubular cast off for the first time. I'd done the Italian bind off on my other garments, but this was the first time that I did the double knitting rows, and I had to also rearrange the 2x2 rib into 1x1 rib, and I just didn't really love the look of the 2x2 going into 1x1. I don't think I would do that method for 2x2 ribbing it again. And I also bound off too tight. Like there's no stretch or anything in this, and that's fine. It fits, it goes over my hips and my stomach and all that. It's just quite awkward getting it on over your shoulders because there is no like extra stretch when you're putting it on. So that's probably the only downside of this, because I love this jumper. It is definitely an A category garment for me. My next garment I don't have because it was my first gift knit. So in June I cast off a baby Aosta cardigan, which is a pattern by the Knit Purl Girl. I knitted it in Drops Extra Fine Merino, which is a DK superwash yarn, and this was a gift for my niece's first birthday. When she was born, she had this tiny adorable pink cardigan that someone had hand knit for her. So when I was speaking with her mum and told her that I started learning to knit, she asked if I could recreate it because it was her favourite cardigan. The pattern from the Knit Purl Girl was like a really good match in terms of the Andalusian stitch was the similar texture to that original cardigan with slightly different spacing, but good enough. So this was a recreation of a existing garment. There was just something so special about gift knitting and being able to give them that like special garment, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed it, and it was so cute being able to see her wearing it. The size of it's great. I sized up to an 18-month one compared to a 12-month one. It came out kind of not too oversized. It still fits nicely now as a 1-year-old, but there's definitely room for her to wear it for another like year or so. Kids, toddlers, babies, they all grow so quickly, and I really wanted them to be able to get loads of wear out of this. It also was a pattern that made me fall in love with the way that Sophie writes her patterns and how she thinks about the fit of her garments, and then that has led to me knitting more of her stuff. This was my first time picking up all the stitches for the button band, and I think I did a really good job. Obviously I don't have the garment here to like show you, not that I'm doing much of a good job showing you anyway, just go like this, so I'll just have to put in B-roll. But yeah, I did that and I did a really good job. I think it looks really pretty, and this is definitely an A garment for me because I was just really proud of how neat it looked and how it turned out, and I just love seeing my little niece in her beautiful cardigan, knowing that I made that. Sticking with kids knitting, the next garment I made was for my daughter. She's 3 and she asked me to make her a rainbow sweater. She said jumper because we're from the UK and we don't use the word sweater. I knit this out of Drops Air and I based it on the Child Aosta sweater by the Knit Purl Girl, but did it without the Andalusian stitch texture and instead went for stripes. Isn't this just like the most fun thing that you've ever seen? Like, I had so much fun knitting this, and I actually knit this in one day. I kind of set myself like this like summer challenge to see, can I knit a sweater in a day? And I did vlog that process if you were interested in watching me chat about, I don't know, Taskmaster and my inability to knit at 1 in the morning. But yeah, it was really fun to knit. The colours are beautiful. My daughter got really stuck in helping me pick the colours, helping me choose the order, and I think it turned out great. She loves it. It fits nicely. It's not too big, not too small. I'm definitely losing points because, oh my goodness, look at these ends. I've still not wove them in. I need to get round to it now because it's actually coming up to autumn and she'll be wearing it. My jogs don't look perfect because I've not woven the ends, but the jogs are so much better than they were on my step-by-step cardigan. I clearly learned a lot from that first garment. This is another A project for me because it was loads of fun. I love the finished object. I am contemplating knitting a matching sort of version for me, but I might also just knit her like all the rainbow things. So I might make her a cardigan, a scarf, a hat, you know, everything that I can, because we obviously now have 14 balls of Drops Air in different colours, and I used like grams of each colour to make this. The next garment I knit was also cast off in June, and that was the Amy top by Mochi Knits. This felt like a proper big girl knit. There was so many like really considered finishing details and techniques that I learned, so I felt like it was a really great project. I knitted it in Drops Bell. So straight away you can see that the collar is rolling, unfortunately. I bound off too tightly, so yes, it's very beautiful how I've bound off the collar, but it just means that it rolls slightly, and just that's a bit annoying. But otherwise, the details of this are beautiful, and I really enjoyed knitting it. This yarn, the Drops Bell, obviously I used it for my Tolsta tank that we're not going to talk about, and the white was rougher than the beigey colour and then the pink colour, which I use in my next garment, so interesting to note. But for this one, my tension came out perfect. So the sizing of this is really great and like to the pattern recommendations, and I really like it. I would maybe knit it a little bit longer so I can tuck it in to like high-waisted jeans a bit more, because it's kind of cropped at the moment. Not crazy cropped, but a bit cropped. I really like this shirt and I love the pattern and I love the finished object. I just think that I have to lose points for the collar not being perfect and not being done properly. I think if I redo the collar, this garment will be an A, but I'm not very good at weaving in ends. You're gonna see that a lot over the next few garments. Anyway, because I haven't redone the collar yet, and because it does roll, look how beautiful that is though, where I've picked up the collar. Oh my goodness, this pattern's amazing. But it's gonna have to be a B for me because of my execution, not the pattern. I would definitely reknit this pattern, and I will definitely go to the effort of fixing it at some point because I do love this garment. But yeah, it's a B. I had a very busy June because I have another garment that I cast off in June using Drops Bell again in a beautiful pink colour, and that is the Ivy Top by Petite Knit. A really simple kind of funnel neck vest top. So with my Tolsta, my gauge was really loose. With my Amy top, my gauge was really perfect. And with this, it's really tight. So I've got the holy trinity of gauges with my Drops Bell yarn. I love the colour. This is so fun, so bright, but also just kind of goes with loads of stuff because it's just a vest. So you can put things over it. You can just wear it with a skirt. This was a really nice simple pattern. It was really good mindless knitting during a heat wave when my brain was like, warm, because I do not thrive in the warm weather. I am an English rose. I like autumn. I like cold. I do not like sunshine. I burn to a crisp. I turn to bacon. So yeah, I don't thrive when it's hot, but I still managed to knit this. I really like the funnel neck in the pattern, but because mine has a tighter gauge and I had to block it quite aggressively, I've kind of lost that element and it looks a bit more tight boat neck. I love the like tiny saddle shoulder detail almost that you get in this pattern. I definitely think that I will remake this at the correct gauge. I definitely think I'll remake this at the correct gauge next year, but for this one, I'm gonna put this in the tier C. It's fine. It's very wearable. I enjoy it. It's just fine. It's just an okay garment that I knit, that I like, that's nice, but nothing special. Let's move on to July. In July, I cast off a Sabai sweater. This is a pattern by Susanne Muller / Paula Strict, and I knitted it in Holstgarn Coast. I think this is a really nice, like elevated basic. It's got a really nice boat neckline. It's got an oversized body but quite slim fitting sleeves, so it gives it a bit more of a interesting silhouette than just completely oversized. I like the fit, I like the style, I think it's quite chic. I'm taking points off this one because when I blocked it, it got shorter, like quite significantly. I think I lost like 5 centimeters or so. So that kind of made the difference between a crop and being able to like tuck it in if I wanted to, you know, go full out millennial. So it's a bit shorter than I wanted. The yarn is not colour fast. I would say it's still not colour fast. When I blocked this, the water was like juice. It was so purple, and no matter how much I rinsed it, no matter how much I soaked it, I just couldn't get the water to run clear. I really like the little seam that you get on the shoulder. It's very pretty. I did bind off my sleeves kind of differently, so one is slightly bigger than the other and rolls more than the other. But this was a really fun, easy knit. Again, it was kind of mindless knitting. It's a cotton and wool blend yarn, so it was good for the hot weather. It still satisfied my need to like knit jumpers. I think I'm going to put this one in a B. I do think that it's beautiful, and once I have done the bind off differently on one of the sleeves so they match, this is going to be like a really wearable piece for me. And if I ever weave in my ends, I guess I will wear it. August brought some really exciting knits. I completed my first ever test knit. I test knit the Shell Tee, which is a new pattern by the Knit Purl girl, and working with Sophie was really great. I think she runs her test knits really well. I think she's really considerate of feedback, and you know, if she takes it on board, she tells you how she's included it. If she doesn't take it on board, not that she's not taking it on board, but if she doesn't include it, she'll give you reasons why. And I really liked that. I really liked the test knit experience. Having a group of other people who were knitting the same thing was really fun. Seeing everyone's like stripe patterns and colour choices, and seeing everyone knit it up and like finish their garments whilst I was doing this was really motivating. I knitted this in Knitting for Olive's pure silk, and the fabric is stunning. I really love it. It's really soft, it's really light, it's really cooling, it's really beautiful, it's really drapey. I love the colour, I love the yarn. It was a bit of a challenge to work with, especially, I started this in May, and obviously this is a very like firm yarn. It's not got much stretch like using wool and using 3mm needles. It was a learning curve. Like, this has been a labour of love, but it was so worth knitting at this gauge to get this fabric and garment. I think that this fits really well. I think Sophie is, you know, just really good at considering the fit for different body types as well. I think that she does really good grading when it comes to the increase rates in the raglan for this one, and the difference between the body and the shoulders and how it all comes together is really beautiful, and it fits really well. So I do really love this garment and the colours. This is definitely an A for me. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful garment. I just wish that I had knitted it faster so I could have made the most of it in the summer instead of casting it off in August, but hey ho, that's life. The next thing I cast off was my Ranunculus, which I am actually wearing. I knit this in West Yorkshire Spinners Exquisite 4-ply, which is a very beautiful wool silk blend. I love this yarn. It's so soft. It feels very premium for me. I use a lot of like budget yarns, so this feels like a little bougie and extra because I didn't need much of it for this garment, so I could kind of splurge. I think the colour is great. I kind of wasn't too sure when I first got it, but I've warmed up to it and I think it's beautiful, and it's so summery and bright and brightens up my day. It's not necessarily the most appropriate yarn for a t-shirt version of this pattern. I originally wanted to do a kind of oversized long sleeve summer sweater kind of vibe, but my gauge ended up being a lot tighter than the pattern, hence the closer fit. And when I tried on the body before I did the sleeves and it was quite a tight fit, I thought, oh, actually this looks better as a t-shirt. So I went with the t-shirt, which I love. It's just not necessarily the optimal yarn because wool, short sleeves, warm, summer, it's hard to know when I'll wear it, but I'm wearing it today. It's a very medium day, you know, it's grey, not too hot. I think it's maybe 17 degrees, and I went out wearing this with no jacket or anything and I was fine. I didn't make any mistakes when I was doing this yoke, which is like unheard of for me, so I was just really proud of myself doing that, and I learnt loads, which I love. Like, I very much lean into trying new things, learning as much as I possibly can when I'm knitting. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do stockinette basics as well, but I just love the process of learning new things and trying new things. The pattern was great. I've done a video where I talk about why so many people love this pattern, because if you didn't know, this is actually like one of the most popular garment patterns on Ravelry. So if you're interested in that, go and check out that video. I am really undecided on whether or not I should put this in the A or the S tier. I think because it didn't turn out how I wanted, and therefore the yarn isn't perfect for a t-shirt, it's making me think I should put it in the A. But I really, really love it. I loved knitting it. I had so much fun that it could also be an S, but because it didn't turn out as the jumper that I wanted, I'm going to put it in the A category. But I really recommend this pattern. We are now coming up to our final garment, and this is another thing that I cast off in August. I knit the Sonja sweater by Petite Knit, and I used Drops Lima. I am obsessed with this collar. It's turned out so perfect. There's a fun little tip where you do some like rows of double knitting and it makes the collar kind of like naturally fold, and it just means it sits so well, and I love it. I love how the increases look. I look how it's been picked up. I think that my shoulder seams on this are quite neat for me. I think that where I've picked up the sleeves is quite neat. I think this is the perfect size, the perfect length, the perfect fit, the perfect arm length. It's just a great staple for my wardrobe. I actually have a pink sweatshirt that I've had for maybe like 8 years that I got from Primark, which is just like a budget clothes shop in the UK, and I wear that all the time, so I thought I'm going to recreate that in knitting. I will definitely re-knit this and make a series of basic drop shoulder sweatshirts essentially. The only thing that I'm not 100% on in this is that the yarn is a little bit prickly tickly, which I did not get at all with the clay sweater, which I also knit in Drops Lima. So I don't know if it's just because it's so much closer to my neck when I wear it that I notice it. It's not offensive, it's just unexpected, because when I knit this I was considering whether or not to just use the DK strand or whether or not I should pair it with a mohair, because I had the pink mohair to go with this. And I didn't put the mohair in because I wanted it to just be like really comfortable, a sweater that I can wear all the time, be comfy, rot on the sofa in. And I didn't want to risk the mohair being tickly. But now I'm thinking maybe I should have done the mohair. Maybe that would have helped with that little prickle. Either way, this is going to be an S tier for me because I think I've just done a really nice job with the finishing details. I think my gauge is nice. I think the ribbing's nice. I just think it's a nice garment. You can see why people love this pattern. You can see why people have like go-to basics that they knit. Not everything has to be, you know, textures, snazzy, fancy. Like I want to have that mix of beautiful staples that are quite basic. I want to have a bold colour work. I want to have cables, and this just kind of fits into my wardrobe perfectly. Very versatile, very me, very great. S tier sweater. And final garment. Cry. I've got one more thing that I cast off in September. I started knitting on the 3rd of March or the 4th of March, and I cast this off before the 3rd of September, so it sneaks into the 6 months of knitting. The final thing that I finished knitting is the Pimpom shawl by Laura Penrose, and I knitted it in Drops Fiesta, their DK sock yarn. This was just so fun. This was for my daughter. Like, it's not a very me thing to knit. She asked me to knit her a blanket and I was like, no, I'm not knitting you a giant rectangle. So I did a triangle, because triangles are half as much knitting as a square, and I just thought this was like such a fun pattern. This is not dissimilar to the colour of Laura's like sample that she has in the pattern photos, and this yarn is just my daughter if she was a yarn. Like, it's so fun. It knitted up so well in this garter stitch, and this was a great like mindless knit, but you were still doing shaping like every other row, so it was still very engaging, but in a way that I didn't have to overthink. I didn't have to keep count until like towards the end of the triangle. I love German short rows, so I really love doing the scallops. I think they look really nice. The pom-pom bubbles were fun as well. They're kind of like bunched up I-cords, I guess, but they were like quite satisfying to knit. Like, this was just satisfying. It was fun, it was quick. I think it was about 3.5 balls of yarn that I used. My daughter loves it. She's been bouncing around. It was meant to be one of her birthday presents, but she'd see me knitting it. It was like my knit that I did whilst I was like waiting for her to fall asleep, or at soft play, or at kids' parties. So she'd seen it a lot, so whatever, she can just have it now. I put this in the washing machine and it survived. I know it's a superwash wool, but that was the first time I've ever put anything knitted in the washing machine, so I was like bricking it, but it survived. It's fine. And yeah, a very beautiful shawl, and I'm going to put this in the A category. So that's everything that I knit and cast off in the first 6 months of knitting. I've got loads of whips, I've got loads of plans, and I can't wait to see what I learn and what I create over the next 6 months. I have done some autumn planning video if you want to see what I have, you know, planned for the next few months. And I'm really looking forward to being able to do this sort of video again at the end of the year and do my everything I knit in 2025 video and see how the second half of the year compares to the first half of the year. I'm just so happy that I found this hobby. I have found like a whole new side of myself, like a whole new thing. Like I've not really had a hobby since I was like 8, so having something for me has been special. I think it's been really great for my like creative side, but also quite scientific side, and the perfect mix of that. It's been great to like get me off my phone. It's been a perfect thing for me to like do at the same time as being with my daughter. She's very crafty. She does a lot of painting and colouring, so we tandem craft. She's even tried to learn to knit, which has been very cute. And yeah, I've just learned a lot and had a lot of fun, and it was really fun to be able to look back at everything that I knitted, because I have 12 garments and 2 accessories here, which is a lot for 6 months of knitting. I'm very impressed with myself, and I think that I've made some really beautiful things, and it was cool to kind of see the things that I knitted early on in the first few months compared to like the last month where I was doing things like this. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed my little tour of everything I knit in the first 6 months, and make sure that you subscribe if you want to see what I knit in the next 6 months. Have a great afternoon.